He looks like an adult, but something in him never fully lands. You can spot him anywhere, in a coffee shop, sketching big ideas into a notebook, ideas that never become real. In relationships, he's intense and magnetic, until life asks for consistency and he disappears. He's not stupid, he's not lazy, he's stuck. In Jungian psychology, there's a pattern called the puer aeternus, the eternal boy. A man whose identity is built around potential, not reality. Because reality has rules, reality has limits, reality demands choices. And to the eternal boy, choosing one path feels like killing every other dream. So he keeps life in draft mode. He wants a life that stays open-ended, where he can always be special, always be free, always be on the verge of greatness, without ever having to risk failure in the real world. And here's the hidden truth. For the puer, responsibility doesn't feel like responsibility. It feels like death. Not literal death, symbolic death. The death of freedom, the death of fantasy, the death of being the person who could become anything. So he floats. He moves from job to job, plan to plan, relationship to relationship, chasing intensity, avoiding structure. He loves the spark, hates the slow build. And the strange part is, he can look impressive at first. He can be passionate, romantic, creative, emotionally expressive. He can make life feel larger. That's why people fall for him. But the closer you get, the more confusing it becomes. One week he's starting a business. The next week he's lost in distraction. One day he's obsessed with you. The next day he's distant. Because the problem isn't time, and it isn't motivation. It's a wound deep in the psyche, where adulthood feels unsafe. So the question becomes, how does a boy become a man who can't fully grow up? To understand that, we have to go back to childhood, where the eternal boy is usually formed. The man-child rarely starts as a bad kid. He usually starts as a boy who didn't get the right psychological training to face life. And there are two common pathways. Pathway 1, overprotection. In this version, the boy is loved but controlled. He's praised but not challenged. His discomfort is removed. His failures are softened. Someone always steps in. So he never builds the inner muscle that says, I can handle resistance, I can tolerate frustration, I can survive mistakes. And when he finally meets real life, pressure, rejection, hard work, it doesn't feel normal. It feels terrifying. Not because the world is cruel, but because it's unfamiliar. Pathway 2, emotional neglect. In this version, the boy isn't guided, he isn't mirrored, he isn't emotionally held. Maybe his parents are absent, overwhelmed, addicted, angry, or simply unavailable. So the boy does what a sensitive mind always does when reality feels unsafe. He retreats inward. He builds fantasy worlds. He becomes a dreamer, not as a hobby, but as a refuge. Because in fantasy, he has control. In fantasy, he can be special. In fantasy, he can't be abandoned. And here's the key. In both pathways, the boy fails to complete a healthy rite of passage into grounded adulthood. He never learns how to anchor spirit into structure. So later, as a man, he chases excitement and avoids stability, not as rebellion, but as self-preservation. Because stability triggers an old fear. If I commit, I'll be trapped. If I commit, I'll fail. If I commit, I'll lose myself. If I commit, I'll be abandoned again. So he keeps moving. He escapes through anything that keeps him feeling alive without demanding responsibility. Women, work fantasies, art, drugs, spiritual concepts, video games, endless planning, anything except stillness. Because stillness is where the pain speaks. Stillness is where the inner child asks, "Where were they when I needed them? Why wasn't I prepared? Why does adulthood feel like danger?" And that's why the eternal boy often lives in a psychological neverland, a place where life stays an idea, where love stays romantic, not relational, where passion burns but never becomes warmth. But there's a shadow side, because potential feels exciting until it becomes a prison. And eventually, life forces a moment of truth. At some point, the fantasy starts to crack. Maybe he loses the relationship. Maybe he loses the job. Maybe he wakes up one day and realizes he's surrounded by half-finished dreams. And then something changes. Potential stops feeling inspiring and starts feeling shameful. Because now potential isn't a promise, it's a ghost, a reminder of who he could have been if he had stayed. This is the cliff every puer eventually reaches, and from here, there are two paths. Path 1, he doubles down. He blames the world, he becomes cynical, he hides behind sarcasm, he escapes deeper into distraction, always saying, "One day it'll click." But it doesn't. Because the wound isn't on the calendar. It's in the nervous system. It's in the psyche. It's in the unmet grief. Path 2, he stops running. And he asks the most dangerous question of all. What am I actually afraid of? This is where real growth begins. Not as a motivational speech, as a reckoning. Because leaving Neverland requires grief. You grieve the childhood you didn't get. You grieve the dreams you abandoned. You grieve the relationships your fear sabotaged. And you begin to meet the parts of yourself you exiled. The part that's terrified of failure. The part that doesn't trust commitment. The part that still wants to be held and reassured. The part that thinks responsibility equals loss of self. This is why practices like shadow work, inner child work, and parts work matter. Not as trends, as a way to build what was missing, an inner father, a stabilizing inner presence that can say, "I see you, I'll protect you, and we're still going to do the hard thing." Because the goal is not to kill the boy. The goal is to integrate him, to bring the imagination of the child into the discipline of the adult. That's symbolic death. The boy doesn't die in spirit, he dies in dominance. He stops driving the car. And when that happens, transformation becomes real. The dreamer becomes the builder. The lover becomes consistent. The creative fire becomes focused. He doesn't lose his magic, he channels it. He learns to stay when it's uncomfortable. He learns to choose one path and accept the grief of not choosing the others. He learns that limitation isn't prison. Limitation is structure. And structure is what turns vision into reality. So if you recognize the eternal boy in yourself, here's the invitation. You don't have to abandon your dreams. You just have to stop hiding inside them. Yes, adulthood is hard, but avoidance is harder because it slowly steals your life while you're still breathing. And if you love someone who lives as a man-child, remember, you can't grow him. You can't rescue him. You can only choose yourself. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is walk away, so he finally faces the mirror alone. The boy inside a man doesn't need to be destroyed. He needs to be fathered. And once he is, he becomes a source of creative fire, grounded love, and real purpose. not as fantasy, as reality.